Lucky Boys Podcast.
Coming in to say hi to you guys and see what's going on, man. I've been here since January 21st, 1968.
Whoa.
In the same apartment. Haven't left. Oh, actually, I tried to leave, but somehow it just pulls me back. So that's
It has that magic. New York City
and
all these clusters of the different neighborhoods.
Right.
Well, let's, we're recording?
Yep, we're recording.
3, 2. Welcome to Lucky Boys Podcast. I'm Will.
And I'm Norm, and we have a very special guest in the studio today, Joe from the Hood.
Hi, Joe Chan here. How you all doing?
Doing better now that we're all together and we have this, we have a lot of things going on.
Yes, definitely.
What's up with you?
Not a whole lot. I was just at a rally yesterday at Foley Square. Once again, what's going on?
Held by the Asian American Federation?
It was for the anti-Asian hate rally.
Right.
That was, I believe it was from the ALDEF.
Okay.
And once again, you know, we've been having a lot of issues with crimes. And just recently, not too long ago, right there in front of Baxter and Worth Street, right across the street from my window, a person was stabbed in the back, just random out of nowhere. And next thing you know,
An Asian man that was 36 years old was walking and unprovoked, someone stabs him with an 8-inch blade.
from the back.
From the back.
Basically, it was. I'm glad it. I didn't want it to happen, but that particular corner, because it's strategic alley, they call it. It's right there in front of the courthouse. There is enough CCTV to rival London's CCTV. So there's a lot of overhead cameras that literally captured every single moment, and the guy just jumped him from the back and just literally jacked him with the blade. And according to what the news was saying, I just didn't like the way this guy looked at me. So somehow I got a funny feeling that it's going to happen to be, it's not a hate crime. This is another mental issue. So it's always been like this with a lot of the reporting about the so-called hate crime, how they describe hate crime, and how a lot of the, incidents ended up not as categorized as hate crime.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I've had so many people on the show and discussions with activists, people within the community, victims within the community, police officers, Asian American police officers, and they all tell me, like, this is not going to be classified as a hate crime. Not just this specific situation, but in situations that happened before this one, prior to this. And they tell me, well, they're probably not gonna, I'll be honest with you, Will, and you won't like the answer, but they're not likely to classify this as a hate crime. I'll give one great example to support what you're saying. The 89-year-old grandma. I mean, that was like pulling teeth, right? They said, first of all, Asians don't report it. Well, what happened when she did report it, right? They told her, go back home, grandma. Go back home. And it wasn't until there was large media coverage to apply some pressure that they started looking into this if it could be a hate crime. I don't understand for the life of me why this is being blown off. I mean, it's gotten red hot. And I don't understand why, from a political level and from a police standpoint, throughout the United States, why are they so afraid to classify unprovoked crimes against Asians as hate crimes?
And I look at it, I mean, it's kind of complex in different levels because, number one, there is a language problem. And right now the narrative is black and brown. I'm going to leave it out there because everything so far in New York City, it's like black and brown. And you hear it in the mainstream news and not too often that the Asian culture or the community is involved in a lot of the stuff. And at the same time, when you do have people that report, there's not enough, I guess, staff or facility or even resources in the NYPD to facilitate the Asian and the Chinese population.
So there's no room.
We want to become police and law enforcement. That's the other thing, as far as like hiring or whether you have the Asian community wants to, become part of the NYPD or even, in some of the law enforcement. But you also have to remember, Chinese also has a stigma, most are nilok yi. That's the first thing that they always tell you, don't trust the cops. So why would you want to have,
But that's the immigrant. That's the old school Chinese.
It's still ingrained in us because we still have a lot, of a generational divide, a lot of the people right now. And of course, the young kids now, listening to certain music and they're going to say, oh, fuck the police, fuck the popo. And we get that. And they still do. A lot of people today, because of what's happening with Black Lives Matter, you don't. And not whether you like it or not. If you're going to report it, if you don't report it in a proper content, then it didn't happen. And and I said the same thing the other day and I posted something on social media with Jeremy Lin. And he says, "Oh, well, somebody on the court called me coronavirus." This is Jeremy. Yo, if the guy call you out, call him out, because if you don't, it's like the tree in the forest. If it fell, it didn't make a noise.
I say that shit all the time.
It didn't happen. Because if you, and it's simple, and I also mentioned, your silence gives these people consent. And if you have a platform, you have a voice, and you're a celebrity status. When you became the Linsanity, if somebody calls you out and call you coronavirus, you shout that shit. I said, what the fuck, you just call me? You let the ref know, and then you call the man out, and he says, "I know that, and I don't want to." Why? You should, right. Because now you're gonna, or then everybody else gonna say, "Yo, Kung Flu, man, pass the ball," and that's
right. You have to stand up to these bullies, right? Or it won't stop.
You have to, because the bottom line is, when is it gonna stop? If we're gonna be passive, if we're gonna use, nowadays. You literally have to speak up and speak out. And when somebody just say, "Yo, man, go home," I says, "No, you're in my hood. You go home, motherfucker." Mm-hmm. And this is how you should actually. And a lot of times, it bugs me how people want to analyze unreasonable assholes. Listen, you don't have time to analyze why they call you a fucking chink. They just called you one. So, either you react to it as like, what, and if you happen to have your camera or your cell phone, flip that around, put it in your pocket. Here we go. Did you just call me what I just heard? I says, after that, all bets are off. I got you. So if they're going to come at me, let's dance.
Yeah. What I will say about the Jeremy Lin thing, first of all, I commend Jeremy Lin for coming out like that and sharing it. I think using his platform and saying that is it's not always the easy thing to do. That's one. Two, I would say, and I usually don't side with celebrities or when I try to be objective. I think there may be a culture in basketball where you just don't snitch fully. Like, you could say like the whole coronavirus thing, but you can't name names, right? Because I'm trying to think to myself, when that news broke and I got wind of it, I'm thinking the same thing you did. Why didn't he give me a name?
Well, the reason probably is the money, because the bottom line is a lot of people's career today, of all the sensitivities, the cultural competencies, the political correctness, if you say something wrong, you lose your paycheck. I mean,
you're talking about Jeremy Lin losing his paycheck?
Well, he's not going to be losing it, but he's going to worry about his playtime, because chances are there will be anywhere you go.
They want to stay away from controversy.
And yeah, this is something about America is if you are a whistleblower, you automatically becomes a snitch. So, and a lot of times with people that they're trying to understand, they don't think there's a difference between a whistleblower and a snitch. And there is a difference.
Right.
And the thing is, but when you're on that court, when you with certain culture, you're a snitch.
Right.
So you know what happens when they say in the hood, snitches, get
stitches.
Yeah.
And his stitches is the bench, because they will retaliate him.
Or he won't sign on to an NBA team. So I think that's one. That could possibly be one why he wouldn't name someone specifically. I think the second thing is people people are looking at this wrong, especially the basketball folks. Because I had a conversation with a couple of my friends that I hoop with about this and how they felt about it. And they're going, we're in a group chat and they're like, yo, Will, people talk shit all day on the court. They don't really mean it. And I'm going, yo, what if they did that on your culture? See, I understand trash talk. I trash talk all day on the court, but I never bring someone's colors of their skin or some stereotype and attack them on some racist shit. But for some reason, for Asian ballers or Asian athletes, that's okay. And that's what trips me out. Ask any Asian athlete or anybody that's ever stepped on a basketball court that wasn't in Chinatown or wasn't in an Asian, where you're playing against other Asians, where you're playing outside of that, where you were probably the token Asian person. Did they, and if you got skills, whether this could be soccer, baseball, basketball, right, and you got skills and it was deceptive for them, right? They wasn't expecting that shit and you just totally smoked them. You got them. You took ankles that day, right? And right away you hear shit like, yo, fried rice, dumpling, chink. They're going to want to pull their eyes. They're going to want to get physical with you. They're going to want to fight. They're going to want do something to you because they got the numbers. They want to bring this to a racial shit. Call you Bruce Lee, Yao Ming, anything to fuck with you. And I'm okay with trash talk, but racist trash talk, how come it's okay when it happens to Asians? Because if it was the other way around, you call another race, everyone's going, whoa, 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 whoa.
Well, I could imagine that first Japanese Knickerbocker player that was, all...
The first Asian American basketball player.
Yeah.
Yep.
And let me tell you something, he was at a time, so I could imagine all the bitter he had in court, when he's balling on that court with, the oppositions and even sometimes your own team. And it's, sometimes it is what it is. I mean, I grew up here in New York City during the 70s, which is the non-PC era, and people talk shit all the time. And they even got down to like the mama jokes, when you're playing in the court.
Right.
And even mama jokes was not okay. Yo, don't be fucking with my mama and shit.
Oh, yeah, that's never okay.
But, it's like...
Especially now, if you met my mom.
Yeah, but why is it okay now to call me, egg rolls or fry? I mean, even growing up, I was the rice ball in Chinatown. I grew up on Mulberry Street, and that's what the Italians call the Chinese, the rice balls. So there's sometimes, things never change.
But it hasn't for us.
No.
That's the thing. It hasn't for us. And actually, it's gotten worse. I would dare to say that's gotten worse. Will, what are you talking about it's gotten worse? You got people getting stabbed left and right. Crime is up, 2,000%? It doesn't matter. We're being attacked, right? It's a fact. That's not even up for debate. It may not be in your city or you may not think it's real, but if the tables were turned, you would be concerned.
And so here's the situation. When you have the most, the leader of a dictator of the most powerful nation at one time said it was Kung Flu, China this and China that. So if the man in the house was okay, that means everybody else down there says is okay. It didn't matter because they said, well, we're talking about China. But like you said, we have a lot of ignorant mofos out there that didn't give a damn.
They're not ignorant.
And
they're not ignorant. They're just shitty people.
And that too.
They're really shit. They know it's fucking wrong. They're just spreading their shit and trying to make other people feel like shit because they're shitty people. That's it. Ignorant to me is letting them off. They're not ignorant. They know what the fuck they're doing.
It goes back to even Vincent Chin where they're mistaking him for a Jap because, there's happened to be a bunch of drunk auto workers that say, oh, you bunch of Japs over here taking all our businesses and whatever. Meanwhile, the man's Chinese. It didn't matter. We just happened to have the slant eye. And it even goes back to the Life magazine during World War II that they had to put out an article to have two pictures depicting, well, this is what a Japanese looked like and this is what a Chinese man looked like. Are you fucking kidding me? This was actually printed on Life magazine. Look it up, Google it. They have pictures of a Japanese man and a Chinese man, and they literally just graph the face,
Yeah, that's not
giving
okay.
you the indication of the angle of the eye because of the Japanese man here is different slightly. They're not gonna know. You're gonna get drunk coming out of a pub.
Well,
You're gonna be a fucking.
I don't even care if they did know. All right, because that's still not okay. That's not okay to go, oh, Will's cool because he's Chinese, so I won't fuck with him. But if you was Japanese, I would fuck with you. And because I have this newspaper clipping that shows me that your eyes does this, you're okay. I would, come on, man. That's not
And that's
not cool
Life
too.
magazine.
I don't care. That's not cool too, man.
And what would happen if and when, if the People's Republic of China decides to declare war on us, and where are we going to be as far as are we going to be in concentration camps? Because they put the Japanese in there, and I believe there was a handful of Italians. So, I mean, these all comes into consideration, the fact that we've been, excluded in a whole lot of things since 1883 when they say all Chinese must go.
The Exclusion Act.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is we don't want your jobs, but you don't want to do it either. And the thing is, we're considered the outsourced Americans because the enslaved Americans were emancipated, and they'll say, don't worry about it. We got some cheaper ones over here. We'll just send 240,000 here and let them build the railroad, and they'll be fine because they're not a threat. So, but these massive dudes here, we had to use guns. We don't need guns for these little folks over here. Get 200, and then when they get over here, next thing you know, there's another ethnic group and say, now you're taking our jobs. And then, if anybody else seen, the series called The Warriors, will let them know that they pit the Irish against the Chinese because there was lack of work, and they were just struggling just to put food on the table.
I feel like that's still happening today.
Yes, it is.
And it may not just be the Irish, but it's other minority communities where they're going, look at the Asians, or they'll tell the Asians, look at another minority group, look at them, they're the problem. And then I'm seeing this left and right. Even my conversations with a few of my friends, they're subscribing to some of that narrative, and they're going, oh, it's this group, it's this group. I'm like, dude, you got to stop looking at it like just each individual compartment on these neat silos, because that's not how it's working. It's everyone. It's everyone. It's all the shitty people versus all the people that want. It's good and evil. That's all it is. And there's even evil people on that look like us that are Asians, and they're, because it's not. I mean, they try to make it a black and white thing. They try to make it a black and Asian thing. They try to make it's us versus them.
There's because you also have to remember how the media is going to spin it. It's always going to be about that spinning because it depends on how they want the people inside the cage and how they want to rattle them. Because the thing is, I look at it, on a pure, simple binary thing. You have a victim and a perpetrator. And how the situation is and whether, they're going to go by the first name, last. A lot of times when you hear in the news, you don't hear, and they'll say, oh, I can't find or identify. And the media itself tend to filter out certain things that they don't want the masses to hear or to know or to get the full gist of the information. And all they want to look at it happens at this sequence. But they didn't tell you what happened before, how it leads to this sequence. But it didn't matter. The impact is focused on that sequence. Then everything that all gets spinned off, and then the next thing you know, it's just another Asian against Asian crime, or it's a mental thing.
We can't get caught in that trap, that really small box thinking, and fight racism with racism. That doesn't work. You'll invite more people in the racism party on both sides of the fence, and that's not going to cure shit. It's a matter of good and evil. The people that do dirt to us or any other group, we fight against that, and that's how we should address it. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. And the people that we have currently that can move the needle, I'm just not sure why, at a time where crime is supposed to be down overall, why when you see something like there's a leak here, why wouldn't you address that? If that's the major, if your numbers are off here, why wouldn't you allocate resources? Everything else is down here, right? Crime is reduced here, reduced here, reduced here. I just don't understand when it's up here significantly, astronomically, where it's getting coverage all over the place, where people with large platforms, Asian celebrities, you have major corporations, Nike, Apple, going, we stand with our Asians. You have former presidents, Bill Clinton, saying we stand with Asians and condemned any violence against our Asian Americans. And you're still turning away like, nope, not a hate crime. The evidence cannot be any more refutable. I just do not understand how you can not
Address it.
be tough on it. I just don't think that hate crimes against our people matter to them, right? If action speaks louder than words, then what has been done? What has been done? You telling me Asian Crime Task Force?
Absolutely.
That's a volunteer group with very little resources.
Nothing. And the thing is, it goes back to, I hate to say it, it's a money factor, depending on where these incidents and crimes are committed. Is it worth investing government resources and tax dollars in locations that it's worth investing? Now, if we were living on the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side, or Tribeca, and all of that is happening, trust me, they would have security details in no time. These things are happening in the most impoverished.
For the people listening, those are the more affluent areas in New York.
They're very expensive, high-end zip codes.
High property taxes.
And the sad part is I live in 10013, one of the most expensive zip codes in New York City, or if not in the United States. But I'm the NIMBY. I am not in my backyard. So the bottom line is, I also work in the Bronx, so I know where the city is. Well, if it's not worth investing, well, we're just going to let it play out and leave it at that. This is all about, believe it or not, class. And I come to a point it's no longer even about certain race, because it's where the money is. Like I said, if these person like Rick Moranis, he got attacked by a homeless person, and man, how
can you fuck with Rick Moranis?
Thing is,
he's an actor from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right?
And
Ghostbusters.
They took care of that real fast. And if anything else, it's sad, because the other stereotype is in New York City, the most impoverished population, Asians. Look it up. And I believe Huffington Post had it, because they think that it's the moral minority. We're not, in the poverties. And if you get a chance to Google it.
That could not be any more false.
Yeah, because they don't realize that we have Pakistanis, the Bengalis, and the Indians and the Hindu who are in the community that are suffering, because, it's not everybody comes from the MIT of India, which is, they laughed about it, called the Mumbai Institute of Technology. But the thing is, their work, it's an underserved population, and the poverty stake at Asian community in New York City is low.
So that said, do you think it's classism or racism?
It's a little bit of both, but they're going to use race, and it's always a matter of race, they'll end up using the race card, and basically to individuals, whatever that will benefit their political agenda. It's always been there. If they can't get them in one card, they use the other. But you don't see the money. You see the color. So that's the first thing they're going to say. This is discrimination. Because a lot of times that's what you're going to hear. It's always been. And the sad part is New York City is supposed to be one of the most liberal cities, yet we have the most segregated and most, racial divide. Why is that? And what is it about the subtlety of racism and bigotry in New York City is like, oh man, I got a lot of Chinese friends that deliver food. It's like, yeah, they do my laundry. I says, no, they're not your friends. They do your laundry and they deliver your food. It's like if you have friends, you're friends. I don't have white friends. I have friends. I don't have black friends. I have friends. But if you're going to have to put a color in front of it, then you don't have friends.
Funny you point that out. I mean, with my friends I grew up with, I never thought of them like, oh, that's my Italian friend. That's my black friend. That's my Jewish friend. That's my Asian friend. I just thought, yeah, these are my boys. Yeah.
Why do I have to be in the box? You're my friend. That's all there's to it.
That's it. And if you do call someone that, you put, like, that's my whatever race
Hyphenated friend?
then that means you don't have enough of that.
Yeah.
That's a big clue to say that that's probably your one of two or three, or probably your only person that's a friend that's outside your race.
When I was in the military, I was one color. I was green. It didn't matter because if I fuck up, my 49 other crews in my base or my unit will get punished. I would be like Full Metal Jacket. I was, what? You just got that donut in there? You're the 49 guys who's going to lose privilege. And, that's the tightness of the crew. But if you're going to say, well, we're not going to punish this one because his color is different. And no, why do you need, to label your friends? If you have friends, that's what they're friends.
It's always such a heavy topic talking about race. It's very sensitive, very political. It's just heavy. Like whenever we have conversations during the podcast, or just in life in general, it's chill, man. But once you get to race, you just feel this weight on your shoulders of fuckery, of all types of different shit. And it just feels so heavy on you. And you just want to somehow lift it off and get this fucking shit off. And because it's wrong. It ain't right. But you can't. It still weighs on you. And you have other people trying to help support it up and get it lifted off your shoulders. And then you have another group that's saying, no, you deserve that burden.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that's carrying nothing. And they go, no, you deserve it. And they're going to add to your burden. Even the people that are within your culture can decide not to carry that burden and go, no, it's your burden. It's not mine. And you're holding this shit. And you're going, bro, what the fuck?
And if it's someone in your circle that's being affected, you're going to be like, what the fuck?
First of all, do you know that we're all in this shit together, whether you see it or not? If you look at it from a macro sense, we're all in this together. Reagan said something during one of his speeches when he was president that I found intriguing for two reasons. One, well, let me just say what he said. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, I can't imagine how humans or people can see that we're all actually one if an outside force came in, like an alien or whatever, right? Came in and was like, here I am. All humans would look and go, oh shit, we're just humans. We're human beings. We're one. Instead of drawing these lines that separate us, instead of looking at our differences, we'll immediately look at the glass half full. We'll start looking at how much we are alike and focus on that. And the second thing of what I find intriguing about that statement is because, oh shit, do you know something about aliens?
This is during his Star Wars program.
Papers.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to lighten it up.
And by the way, he was my commander-in-chief when I was in the Air Force. And one of the interesting you mentioned about, race and actually demographics. When I was first assigned in London, the first week I went out to a pub, and I was stationed in RF Uxbridge in High Wycombe, not in Uxbridge. And I went inside a pub, and I walked into the loo and used the bathroom. I didn't realize that was the governor or the owner of the pub. And he says, be careful. They don't like your kind here. So what happened was, and I finally opened up my mouth. I said, listen, man, I'm only here with my crew to have a drink. And he says, oh, you're a bloody Yank. And he was not concerned about my Yank. He was concerned the fact that in this particular neighborhood, they don't like Asians. And I was in the pub that was like, this is an all
American.
All white pub. And the fact that afterwards, this was a neighborhood where they didn't take too kind into their Asian, which is like the Indians, East Indians. So after when I speak up, I said, listen, me and I just want to come here for a drink. Then he heard my accent. He goes, you're a bloody Yank. And that makes me think, you even dislike Americans even worse than me being Chinese. Because in England, I'm Chinese. And then the Southeast Asians are like the Indians and the Pakistani to them. They're Asian. So there was something that I picked up when I heard, which is, you're a bloody.
So were they okay after they found out you were?
They actually did not like me as a Yank than me being a kitchen sink. And by the way, in Cockney, a kitchen sink is a chink.
What?
That's a Cockney slang. If you're in London, if somebody calls you a kitchen sink with a Cockney accent, you're a chink.
Why is a kitchen sink? I don't get it.
Because Cockney speaks in rhymes and slang.
So they marry the two words?
So the thing is, they just use it either that or you're a wrinkly dink, which is for Chinese food. This is another culture in England.
It's slang.
It's a slang.
You know what? I feel like everyone's like fucking 5 years old. When we grow up, we never really grow up. We still got stupid names.
And
for
it
people.
took a while for me to understand, even living in London, which is a highly Chinese population and also Indian.
Is it?
And, yes.
London is highly populated with Asians?
Well, they have a Chinatown that's definitely better than the one I have over here. But at the same time,
do they?
And
wait, better than the one we have in New York City?
I enjoy the Chinese food in London.
Wow.
Because it reminds me of my stuff in Hong Kong. So it's more. Ooh. So it's and they have an arch, and I don't have an arch. I want an arch. I'm so pissed off.
I didn't know London had a
Oh, you mean like the whole entryway?
They have their
Chinatown
Wafao arch, not a Zhonggok arch. I hate that because Zhonggok. And this is the other thing about me being Chinese: the fact that if you're going to be here, you're a Wayan Wafao.
What does that mean for our?
We're overseas Chinese versus and then of course the fact that when you have somebody like Trump who say, oh, this is a China virus, Chinese this and Chinese that, they also have to understand that Wayan, American Chinese, we're not the same as Chinese or China from whatever, because once again, there's one scene in The Warriors, I'm going to plug The Warriors, where one of the characters, this is Chinatown. You're not in China. Mm-hmm. So, and we also have a lot of American-born Chinese who have probably never been back to mainland to understand the Chinese culture versus the Juxing culture. Right. And these are all the things that intertwine within our own culture, And I also felt that when I first came here, there was also internal conflict between the American-born Chinese and the, fresh off the boat. And
for sure.
The fact that, there are certain generational privilege that they have with the younger generation now that they didn't have to eat the bitter of their, previous ones. And they're actually, doing well versus when I first got here, in the late 60s and 70s, they looked pretty much, down on us. Oh, they go over there, just come here and do whatever. We're the typical.
And what does that mean for our non-Cantonese speaking listeners?
Okay,
you guys have or no use.
Juxing, Jukkak.
You guys.
All these different.
It says Cantonese Toisan slang. The Juxing is. They actually have a restaurant, I think, in Boston called the Juxing Restaurant. Juxing is a slang for American-born Chinese, and then Jukkak is for FOBs like me. Fresh off the boat. Mm-hmm. So
immigrants.
And from what my dad had told me back in he's been here since like the 1920s, and they mentioned the fact that a bamboo has two parts, the hollow and the knot. They call at the one time the Toisan would consider the American-born the hollow, the Juxing, and then the Jukkak is the knot, where the stubborn and the hard-headed. But you also have to remember, we're Chinese. The bamboo itself is what makes the bamboo strong and flexible.
Those two parts make it. Yeah.
Because
Make
like
it one.
if you go to
Impenetrable.
Hong Kong, if you still see the scaffolding, they still use bamboo for scaffolding in architectures that you still don't see in other part of the world. They say that if you're going to be a juk sing, then you're going to like just basically the hollow pot. If you're going to be the juk kak, you're going to be the knot. But you are an integral of one, the most strongest and the most resilient plant, which is the bamboo.
That's a great analogy.
So you have to work together. That's one of the analogies that, when they first auditory Sanzu came here, be the juk kak and then the juk sing. So you would be a juk sing of this,
Right.
of the young generations. But there was definitely a lot of rivalry back in the 60s between the American born.
And you were here since New York City's Chinatown for how many years? Since when?
1968, 60, right now it's over.
When we were talking last time, you said that back then it was just really hardcore. Like
It was
tough.
kind of hardcore because there were gangs but there were also rivalries among some of the associations, the tongs.
now they were they affiliated with the gangs?
Well, they tried not to use the gangs, but they were probably there for muscle, for protection. And certain restaurants would have, their little certificate plaques of the associated tongs that they would have on the restaurant. Some of the
Right, it would
restaurants
be
you
right in
still
front.
see that. So, like, I'll use an example since these are legitimate terms. One is Onleung, the other one is Hip Sing, and then of course you also have the Chinese Freemason, and the other family associations. Like depending on which village that you're from, you could be with the Lee Association, you could be with Chan's Association, the Moys. But some of those associations are also attached to martial arts mogun, like what we have here today. So, for instance, I believe some of the Chans are in the Praying Mantis school.
Right.
There's also the, Hong Kun. So these are all martial arts schools, associations, family associations, merchants associations. And there would be internal rivalry as to, what part of Chinatown that you hear, how you should.
Were they
Mind
all
you.
gang affiliated somehow? Or did some of them?
Some of them, I'm going to try to just, filter down the situation because I really don't want to stir up the old past, because there were people that were doing it, and there were also there were gangs that were just trying to muscle in on the business and or try to muscle in on other gangs, other business. So back in the 60s, there was the Black Eagles, the White Eagles, the Kuan Yings, and then later on, you have the Ghost Shadows, the Guaying, and the Flying Dragons, of course. Then
Well, they became more prominent during the 80s and
80s
90s
and 90s.
when Benny Yong was running the
Right.
Godfather of Chinatown.
So there was also occasionally somebody from the West Coast would come over to the East Coast to see if they can try to, muscle in on some of the business. Because there are some of the associations, like for instance, like Onleung or Hip Sing, they got places in New Orleans, all over.
The associations here in Chinatown, they
Right.
had a lot of connections to the country and back to the old country, right?
Yes.
Hong Kong, China, mainland China.
And they have, it's most of the associations by name and also by chapter. They're almost like the American merchants because, like for instance, Onleung, Hip Sing, you can find them all over the world. Also, with the Hongqing, which is the Chinese Freemason or overall Masons. But at the same time, there are other smaller, merchants associations. In the beginning, when they first came here, they needed, to group some of the money. So it was strictly for merchants. They were there to provide financial and, yes, sometimes enforcement or protection. So it depends on how you want to look at it, because the bottom line is, when you are a minority in also adjacent to other ethnic enclave, you get tired of people coming in and, trying to muscle in your business at the same time, try to do whatever that normally do, because you have to remember this is like, hey, Jake, it's Chinatown, and a lot of business were conducted under the table, and there's also depending on how the business are being conducted, because majority of the time with restaurants and all, there's usually a cash business. The only thing we can do, laundry, whatever it is, the haircut, the salon, and you name it, there's still happening going on. But they needed the muscle
to protect the community from outside forces.
To protect the business. Not much, as far as like there's still that coast, the civilians versus the members. And it's almost like if you look at, with certain organized crime, you don't mess with civilians. And you also, in Chinatown, you don't mess with foreigners. You don't mess with Bakwai because it's bad for business.
Look what happened to San Francisco Chinatown, right? When there was certain gangs and factions had a war. And I think in a restaurant, there was some tourism. They were both. They were Bakwais, they were white, and they were tourists. And they didn't care when all the Asians were killing each other. But as soon as they went into the restaurant and started spraying it up, and there were some innocent bystanders who weren't Asian, got hit with bullets, then it became a problem. And almost immediately after, there was a crime unit assigned. They just dismantled that gang and decimated it to the point where it's not what it once was.
There you go. And it's all about business and commerce. The bottom line is, if you guys want to do your thing to make sure that nobody else and no civilian gets hurt. Hence, at that time, the movie The Year the Dragon came out, but that was shot, about New York City. And even though some of the guys that I know that was in that production, they actually did that out of states. But it depicted the fact that there was a lot of, gang violence. There was a lot of shootings. Unfortunately, a lot of times, those stray bullets, they're not going to be super duper, oh, this is a ghost shadow bullet. We're just going to, these bullets will only hit ghosts. Get the hell out of here. And a lot of people back then were lousy shots. And so New York, when I came back from the military, one of my favorite hangouts, Golden Star, which is on East Broadway, a.k.a. Grandpa's, there was a shooting incident there. And then next thing you know, most of the places just you tend to get, and it's just pure bad for business. But, the gangs are there. There are rivalries, fights, shootings, and sometimes a little bit of jealousy or whatever it is. And drugs there, it's all depicted. And a lot of times, people tend to mimic movies, reality. It's not like we're full, Italian mob thing deal, but it's there. You know that, when you have Nicky Louie, you have the shadows, you have, LJ getting shot, in front of the precinct. All of that, happened. Gang rivalry happens.
Smuggling.
Yeah, all of that.
That was a big
whatever
deal.
worked, because, you got Shrimp Boy
Human
out there
smuggling.
in the West Coast. So these are all out there. I mean, if anybody wants to see it, you can YouTube Asian gangs. You could YouTube, Chinatown, organized crime. All of that is out there right now with a lot of the news background. And then, at one time we had a short infamous with the BTK, which is it's a short-lived Vietnamese gang. And
Led by David Tai?
think so.
Yeah.
But the Born to Kill, there was, and right by the funeral home, it was one of the most under surveillance funerals that, activities. All the cops are around to make sure everything else was on the up and up. But I miss most of that because I actually left the city in '79. But even before that, all of that was going on. Drugs, the gambling, and basically, there was every single barbershop, it's, they all have their own gambling, and whatever it is.
Well, they were extremely violent. When I was a kid coming up, I heard of that gang, and I was just like, "Holy crap! What kind of name is?" First of all, the name.
You know where they got it
Born to
from?
Kill.
It was actually from the Vietnam War. What the Americans have that on their helmet. So
What?
that was the BTK. If you look at one of the, it was one of the Vietnam War movies that was put on
The
Wasn't
Americans' helmets. to
wasn't
the
that-
mark-
American helmet. Then you
Wasn't
also
that
had.
Full Metal Jacket?
I believe
that had
there's
it?
part that
Yeah.
if you looked at it, the BTK was actually on an American helmet, And you also have to remember at the time when there was a massive migrations of the Vietnamese coming into America, these people were already conditioned to a point that their country was invaded by a foreign force. So you were pretty much at the time.
A lot of
trained.
their parents were at the,
And if not,
at the war.
if you were young enough to pick up an AK, you're going to be
picked up.
young enough to defend your village.
Yeah.
So they were born children of war, and they were already collateral damage, and in an environment with nothing to lose. And if they're going to see Chinese gang from Hong Kong coming here, want a piece of the action, you also have to remember that a lot of times, in order for you to get into certain areas, you have to use force. Because if you have no money, they're always going to say with the criminals, you need that gun, you need the force, and then after that is the only way to get capital to do what you need to do. Because if you don't have that force, you can't get your startup money. Even criminals need startup money. So in order for you to get that, and since you don't have generational privilege, you just got here fresh off the boat. What are you going to do?
Right.
You
Let's
take it.
jack a store,
Yeah.
and you're going to find the weakest. And they're going to tell you, by the way, you can't go and jack up a Lofan. So guess what?
And what's a Lofan for people?
Which is another, term for white people. Lofan, or, Bak Kwai, or whatever.
Yeah.
But, the Toy San call Lofan, and it's like, that was off limits. But it does not mean that they're not going to do it, because you also have to remember opportunities, crimes of opportunity, if it's there, they're going to do it.
Right.
So, and that's, it's almost similar to the Italians and with the Westies, which is the Irish and Hell's Kitchen. They were the muscles for the Italians. So you got Featherstone and Mickey and all the other folks that you would see. Once again, Hollywood, State of Grace, how they would introduce the Irish gangs in the Hell's Kitchen and the West Side, how they would do the dirty work.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think violent gangs in New York, Asian violent gangs, has toned down so much compared to the 80s and 90s?
It started with Giuliani, because he went in there and pretty much, tried to clean up. When he went and do the organized crime, it was not just the Italians, because even though we have a, unspoken border on Canal Street between north of Canal and south of Canal, organized crime was organized crime. So if you touch one area, you're dealing with, whatever that you're bringing into this country, somebody has to be a delivery system, somebody has to do the transaction. So, and
So you think he broke the momentum?
he did. And it was good. And then at the same time, there were certain things that he took from the Chinese. He banned fireworks. So
I remember that.
and that was for Chinese New Year and certain culture. The fireworks was a must, and we felt that
It's a big deal.
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But we also know that before that, the fireworks business in Little Italy and Chinatown was massive every summer between Chinese New Year
Oh, yeah, huge.
and 4th of July. I would remember my backyard and my basement will be like wall to ceilings of nothing but,
Right.
stuff that was, driven up here from the South or for the adjacent states where fireworks were illegal.
It's still legal. Mm-hmm.
And come to think of it now, growing up, and I'm looking at the amount of ordnance, explosives that were there. One match would have in that time frame
Oh,
before 4th
forget
of July.
about it.
We had enough to literally to start a small war.
I mean, people had like M80s and
Just picture
things
this
that will
room.
rival dynamite.
Picture this room, wall to ceiling, in your basement, full of boxes and crates and mats of firework.
It was a crazy
It's
time.
being stocked up.
It was a there was people. I had a couple of friends that got their fingers blown from
And
fireworks.
they would shoot that. There used to be a parking lot in front of my building where the Italians would launch the heavy stuff, but the Chinese would also,
like
in the middle
it'll
of
rival
my
like the
street,
Macy's parade.
pile up literally bonfire styles, and we just lighter fluid and let that thing rip. I mean, there's still YouTubes
Right in the
out
middle
there.
of the street.
Right in the middle of
parking
center.
lot,
There's
yeah.
one area, I believe, at one time there was video shot, I think, on Mount Hester. But pretty much the borderline of Little Italy and Chinatown at that time, and they just let it rip, and didn't matter. And yes, people lose limbs and
during Chinese New Year, all you would see filled on the roads was all red.
all
Just
red, all paper,
red.
and everybody would be
That's
all
it.
masked
And
up.
you smell the gun, like the powder,
Yeah.
the explosive powder. I miss that smell, actually. It's weird, but it's
And-
like, it just reminds me of old Chinatown.
And basically every single store would be selling openly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like if nothing was, because it's like right now with all the knockoffs, the cops would just turn the other way.
Is it still illegal in New York City for fireworks? Yeah, right?
Yes, it is.
Because I know, I don't think it is in the surrounding, like Connecticut,
Pennsylvania.
Philadelphia. But in the tri-state area, I think it's only New
noticed
York.
the last couple of
Like
months,
Jersey, I believe, is legal.
it didn't stop anybody because they were still lighting up during the pandemic. They were still lighting fireworks.
During the shutdown, you would
Right.
hear random fireworks.
So,
Did you hear random fireworks?
Yes,
where you
even
were?
here.
2 a.m., 3 a.m., I'm hearing fireworks go
Because
off.
at one time at 7:00, everybody was supposed to make noise for the frontline
Right.
workers.
Right.
So that's when the fireworks and people were just shooting up Roman candles and stuff like that, and they were coming back. So I mean, like, it's illegal, So we're selling knockoffs, but they're telling you, and I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, it's illegal to have guns in New York City. Get how many people that I know in the Bronx are all,
Careful.
They're packing. It is, and the thing is, everybody also know that unfortunately, Chinatown is also providing part of what they would call the Iron Pipeline.
What's that?
All the Chinatown cheap buses?
Yeah.
Well, they would take the cheap bus to go down the south and then go shopping and then come home.
How would they put all
You're on the
those
bus.
stuff
There's no customs. You just pack it and then,
Yeah.
and then you just leave it in. And you got to remember, you can go down anywhere down south and legally purchase firearms.
Right.
And you can just take the bus down there, and all you got to do is pack it in, throw the duffel bag underneath. There's no customs when you're on the bus, so you just
Right.
take it's on the. And when you come back, right on the other side on Elgin Streets or whatever, there'll be tinted window SUVs picking up these large duffel bags, and then they'll just go back to the hood.
sell them.
Open up the back of the trunk and then say, yo, cash and carry. What do you need? Mac 10, 9? You need a sock Sawyer? Yeah, and it's all there. So that's the reason why there are people in certain areas that are still packing heats and hammers.
Right. And I think it'll always be that way
Yes.
unless they make a uniform law. But even still, I feel
But
like
you also have to remember, no matter how strong those gun control laws are, if you don't enforce the law, it's nothing. Because just like we have people right now, oh, it's a hate crime, you're under arrest. But we now have restorative justice, and out goes the revolving door, and we'll see you later in court, or we'll just write you a death ticket. We don't know. It's not a hate crime. He's crazy. So we have enforcement if they're going to enforce the law with this hate crime. But at the same time, we also have a criminal justice system just kind of look at you and just kind of slap you in the wrist and say, oh, it just have a disappearance.
how do you feel about the no cash bail?
I think it's out of hand. And the thing is, but at the same time, there are flip sides because they're now criminalizing the poor. Because also, once again, it goes to the criminal justice system that a person should not have to have an exuberant amount of bail for, let's just say, allegedly, stolen a backpack. I'm using that as an example because of a case with Khalif Browder in New York City where it was alleged that he stole the backpack. And because he couldn't make bail, he ended up almost staying at Rikers for 2 years waiting for a trial.
I remember that story.
He later on committed suicide. But you also have to remember, for you to be, even accused of allegedly taking a backpack, which they later on found, it didn't happen. But no one should have to wait 3 years, 2 years for a trial. So you literally just criminalize
Yeah.
an innocent person.
Well, we don't know that, but the thing is, you're still supposed
Well,
to give these people.
he's innocent. Well, in the eyes of the law, he's innocent until proven guilty.
you
So he's
also-
an innocent person
right.
that you jailed for 2 years, waiting for his. But others on the other side of the aisle would push back and say, "Well, you're just creating a revolving door." Because these criminals know
Well, it's
where
not
the threshold
creating. The
is.
revolving door has always been existed in
Well, when
in
Giuliani was, it was definitely not a revolving door. People were scared.
He locked that door up and said, "Listen, we're going to go through this." But then again, we also have judges in the Bronx where she just let the person go through her door. This is all in the news, so I'm not making this shit up. Literally, there was one incident where the Bronx, I think it was like a judge or a DA, whatever, and just basically let the perp out through her door and say, "What are you doing?" And it didn't matter because, things like this happen. So, it's a matter of how the system works and why these people are either, it was probably either designed, flawed by design, or because if they want the money, and a lot of these restorative justice, they were not properly put in place. The idea is good, but you also have to have these process to put in place that works.
Where the judge can use the discretion.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
It seems like the wrong process or the wrong recommendations is in place. Bail reform is not the answer, right? It's really about that, how do you assess the crime, and then decide what to do
And how much bail to put, because, it's ridiculous for somebody to, like, once again, knowing that they can't afford that bail, but then so now they're going to have to sit and wait for a trial.
But then to do the other extreme, you're letting like real criminals.
Yeah, because there are guys that you hear now, oh, he's on the subway. He's been arrested 98 times, but he's out there. And by the way, not only that, and they joked about in newspapers, he's going to probably get a Mets ticket or Yankee tickets. And some of these nonprofit organizations is going to give him a cash card of $50. And then they'll go out. The first thing they come out of Rikers is to buy booze and weed.
I mean, look at
And it's actually out there, and that's exactly what they're doing.
look at the crimes that's occurring. Everyone that they're catching, for the most part, has priors, right? For example, the guy that got stabbed, right, with the 8-inch blade across the street from your home, he has, I believe, 2 or 3 other priors. One previous to this one could easily be classified as a hate crime. It wouldn't be a stretch. And this is his second assault against an Asian.
And then the lawyers will probably say, no, but, my client is not in the right mental state of mind. And then so therefore, they're going to have, mental issues. So, I mean, that's the other thing with New York City, that they've been trying to get the mental health first aid, but it's not happening. They always say it's there. We have programs, we have resources. But then again, when the times come to these individuals who need it, it's not available for them.
Right.
So
do you think it is a mental issue in that case where you're going around stabbing people?
well, first of all, we don't know what's in the mind of that person when they actually said that. I have to, basically on a neutral level, you literally have to look at each individual case on a case by case. But if you also have priors of what this person is doing, and you want to ask the question, why is he still out in the street?
And yeah, that's right.
That's the other thing. So yes, we have a lot of people that are not in the right frame of mind, but we also have people that are not in the right frame of mind that are not violent. But when you do have somebody that's walking around, with weapons or makeshift weapons, and then, when they start
Actually plunging it into people's bodies.
You also have to remember that, the way that, thank goodness, the CCTV, the camera was there, it was totally unprovoked. But he says, I didn't like the way this guy looked at me. Yeah. And just like that tennis, the tourist that came to the town for a tennis, just to watch a tennis match, and the homeless person had a hunting knife. He didn't, he said, oh, he bumped into me, and he didn't say sorry, so I'm going to make him, and he plunged his hunting knife. And, the guy died. I mean, this is, and once again, and just like the recent crime in Brooklyn, the innocent bystander, the good Samaritan who wanted to help, and he left his family across the street to go try to, stop. Mm-hmm. the altercation and the incident, and then he happens to be the one that is fatally stabbed. Meanwhile,
oh my gosh.
so, and that was, that's something that it's like now people's going to think, and it's going to go back to the instant of the Kitty Genovese. I don't want to get involved, or don't want to be part of this, because now you don't know what that person is packing or
Right.
what he's capable.
That's what with the
of
Filipino
doing.
guy that got slashed across his
with
face.
with the box cutter.
Well, what did he say? I looked around for help and no one
came. And I always have that statement in my head, because when I was watching another show, and believe it or not, this is actually from a food cooking network, with Bourdain was hanging out with a Korean guy, and he showed him exactly where the incident of the LA riot, where everybody was at the high point of all the stores are being burned. And the guy just quoted, "No one came. No one came." And he was talking about the police, that they cordoned it off and they basically let K-Town burn. So what they had to do, they went and say,
They had to protect themselves.
We they armed themselves, and
Do you think
returned fire.
Do you think Asians in America are going to get to that point
Well,
where
first
they say
of all,
enough is enough? We need
it's-
to police ourselves. Fuck it.
In the news, they statistically, in certain states where handgun purchase by Asians, it shot up in a phenomenal, I don't have the numbers, but the percent is high.
They're arming up just to protect their homes and their families. They're
in
not
their business.
like, we're seeing some form of that where they're gathering, but it's extremely peaceful, right? Where they're gathering and they're doing community walks. But I'm talking about that evolving into something more aggressive. Do you see that happening?
It doesn't have to be aggressive, because you also have to remember there's always a flip side to owning firearms. I look at it this way.
Oh, well, no, here's what I mean.
Yeah.
If these crimes continue to happen and the
But you
end
know
result
what?
is no one is helping,
My answer is the folks in the Bronx, a lot of time with the kids, well, I have a gun because I need to protect myself.
right?
And a lot of times, a lot of people in the Bronx have illegal firearms, and they're willing to take the risk of the infamous quote, "I'd rather be tried by 12 than to be carried by 6." And there are mentality, but there's also a mindset in the Asian community that they're also afraid of the gun thing. Just even mentioning of, I have friends in social media, even just the mentioning of guns, they're like, no guns, no guns. I says, listen, you have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen. You're not going to worry about a fire. You're not buying that fire extinguisher thinking that, but you need it. When there's a
but
fire.
that's a fire extinguisher. You're talking about a weapon.
What
that
the
can-
weapon
that
Well, the
can-
same-
that can
same
And
use
the
it.
thing
concept.
is, it's an object. Now I look at it.
I mean, that's far-fetching concept. I mean, like, I understand what the point you're trying to make, but then when you're talking about a weapon, a firearm, you can accidentally just shoot it off and actually
Well,
injure somebody.
that's-
But if you accidentally shoot your fire extinguisher, you're not going to necessarily kill somebody, right?
And the thing goes back to gun control, the fact that is, in order for you to get that firearm, you just don't go to the store and buy one. Because if you need to drive a car, you need to take a road test to understand that pedals the gas, that pedals the brake, this is the turn signal, because you have a 4,000-pound bullet in you.
So what are you supposed to protect yourself with then?
You
By
gotta
the way,
just-
nunchucks is now legal in New York City.
oh, it is? I have nunchucks. I think
Nunchucks?
it used to be not illegal.
So
yeah.
you're gonna protect yourself. So somebody comes up with you, you're outnumbered, outmanned, and you're gonna whip out your nunchucks.
No, I want to protect myself in any capacity necessary. But what I'm saying is, like, it doesn't have to be a gun. Like, I understand, like, the escalation part of it. Like, you want to be the toughest dude on the block to protect yourself.
I disagree. I think it has to be a gun.
And the answer is to arm everybody? I don't think that's the answer, though.
I think for those that are in danger or need that peace of mind, why not? I would argue, why not? If someone is robbing my house, let's say 2 or 3 criminals come and rob my house. I have kids in there. I have my wife in there. Even if I was like this superb MMA fighter, I'm supposed to fight off 2-3 guys. I don't know their level of execution, their level of fight skills, and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, I still run the risk of being outnumbered. How many people can I realistically hold down while the other two go do something else with my family members? Right?
I mean,
what am I supposed to protect myself with? And what if they have, so the bad guys can have the stronger weapon. So what if they have a gun and let's say I'm Conor McGregor, I'm Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? I'm Dustin Poirier. I'm this top notch, one of the best world-class fighters of the world. It doesn't matter. The guy's got a gun. All it takes is one bullet. So what am I supposed to protect myself with against the bad guys? Because the police aren't going to be able to come in time.
And not only that,
even the best law enforcement.
And if you're in a neighborhood that are not worth responding, the response time will be even higher.
Right. So what are we, like, what's the solution then, Norm? Like, what am I supposed to protect myself with?
No, I don't.
If the guns aren't the answer, I'm not saying that's not the fire extinguisher, then what is? What am I supposed to protect myself with? Nunchucks?
No, you just gotta make sure that you're aware of the situation. Yeah, I know that, but if you're legally allowed to have a gun, yeah, you can. That's your choice. But what I'm saying is, like, will the guns stop any situation? Probably not. It's just an escalation of violence to me.
But the thing is,
you're defending yourself though,
and you also
you have the right to.
The violence has been uninvited, unprovoked,
right?
And you have to address it in order for it to stop, or you become the victim.
And you have a legally right to buy a firearm if it's legal,
right?
But in the city, it's not. It's hard to get a handgun.
That's the other thing that I would like to see New York change, because it takes me high and holy hell. I'm still waiting for my renewal for my rifle permit. They purposely discourage law-abiding citizens to own firearms in New York City. And I'm probably one of the very few who is licensed to own firearms in New York City. And the thing,
why is that? Why is it so hard, even for law-abiding citizens, to own a handgun? Not just like I know firearms, but then handguns are almost impossible to get a license for.
The thing is with gun control, I look at gun control as to be properly disciplined, to be well trained, is gun control. In order for you to actually own one. Not because, I'm rich, I have a business, I need to carry a gun. It's a tool. It's an implement. But if you're going to get it, you need to be responsible. You cannot have children and then leave your firearm loaded, which is supposed to be by law. You're supposed to read all the instructions. You can't have, all kinds of...
But how many people are going to actually abide by those instructions?
Exactly. But then again, if the force, if the laws are not properly enforced, then, it's okay. He's a cop. He's allowed to leave. No, he broke the rule. You lose it. You have to enforce the law. All right. Gun control means if you're walking around with an illegal firearm, you would have to be penalized by the criminal system that you are now in possession of an illegal firearm. And you shouldn't have one because, number one, you have a domestic violence record. Number two, you're not in the right mental state of mind. How did you get that? But then again, you also have to remember there are law-abiding citizens who are in the right frame of mind, who've gone through training, who knows how to use it. And not only that, when you have a weapon, it holds a lot of responsibility.
It does, yeah.
And, for me to keep my 9mm, yes, I do have one. And the thing is, legally. I go through training. I, use the range, and it's not a good or a bad thing. It's an object. Mm-hmm. If I leave it on the table and I don't have my magazine in it, there's not a round in it, that object does nothing. I'm the person with the finger. If I'm a bad person with this finger and you happen to have cash, I like that ring on your neck. I want that. And he's not armed. I am. And I'm that bad person with whatever I have. I am going to get that.
He's gonna win. He's gonna win. But I'll tell you what.
But that guy got it illegally while you're trying to get it.
If he has a sidearm, and he's looking at me, and I have a sidearm, he's gonna think twice. And let's just say I don't have a sidearm. Let's say you do, and you're a complete stranger. He's still thinking like,
because
shit.
he's no longer an easy target.
If I stick him up, my man right here may not be going like the guy that got slashed.
The good
he may
Samaritan.
not be looking around and going, oh shit, something might, like, oh, no one's there to help me. That's a different story. That's a different. I mean, look at Texas. There's been times where there's this video of I think they're in a college room. It looked like some type of lecture hall, and this guy takes out a gun and starts letting off shots into the auditorium or the lecture hall, and he one of the security guys just takes out his gun. Boom! One shot, dropped him.
But he was trained.
He was trained.
There
One
you go.
shot.
That's the difference.
That's the thing. I would think if I'm trying to rob you, and I don't know Norm, I see other people there, and it's just you and me. Even if I'm successful and you don't have a sidearm, I'm thinking, shit, what's my blind side? What's my blind? What if this dude takes out a gun and there's cameras everywhere? What if this dude takes out a gun and shoots me while I'm trying to shoot you?
And all those armed
It would-
robberies
it would
in the
make me
Bronx and
think
those
twice.
bodegas, they don't care about those cameras. And they'll still put that piece in your face and say, empty your cash register.
Right. But when the score's even, you would think twice. If someone can shoot at you back and defend themselves, you would think twice.
The bodega owners now, some of them, the Bangladeshis and the Pakistanis, they have machetes. And just the fact that you have a weapon, and people don't realize that if they're trained in close quarter combat, a knife is actually more dangerous than a firearm because the firearm only shoots one direction. My blade, if you're also, and it's crazy. The most dangerous thing you have is an edged weapon at close quarter combat and not a gun.
Now, here's the truth of the matter, Norm. Not all gun owners are gun crazy. They literally makes them uncomfortable to even the thought of having one in their homes where the kid can have access to it or the family members. I think a lot of people, a lot of gun owners, legal gun owners, feel uncomfortable that they even need to get a gun, but they're aware of the situation of they need a plan in case shit goes down. That's all I'm saying. I know a lot of people that have a plan in place just in case for a doomsday scenario. The doomsday scenario for them is if someone tries to do a home invasion and they can't protect their family. That's one of the scariest thoughts for anyone, even criminals. The thought of someone coming into your private space where you're supposed to be safe and taking things that you care about, things that you own, whether material or life.
That was happening around, in certain Chinatowns and even outer boroughs at one time, home invasions. And they would, unfortunately, I'm close to a family that happened. And what they did was they tied them up in the middle of the living room and they would just take the sun and they would just douse him with, lighter
they waterboarded
fluid.
him?
With the lighter fluid.
Oh, shit.
And they say, give everything up or I'll set this kid on fire. Mm-hmm. So, home invasions are real and they do it, and it's, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's unavoidable, but unfortunately now, with today's society, we have people that are coming in as acting fake plumbers, fake utility,
fake delivery guys,
everything. So, now what are you going to do? And the thing is, it's not even just in the Asian community, it's also in other communities where these people are, they fall victim into these crimes because they figured they're easy targets.
Yeah. And they do a lot of stalking, they'll stalk them out.
And that's what they were also thinking, the fact that the last incident in Brooklyn that, with the stabbing and all that.
Which one? The
one with the
the
gambling, yeah. So the thing
what was the story behind that?
Apparently, it was an illegal gambling. The place is just people just gambling.
Like an underground gambling.
Right. I mean, you can just sit at home or in front of your store And
And
as
that'd be
long as you have
considered.
no money,
Right.
you can play cards and you still be gambling. But somehow, apparently, somebody got wind of the place that, oh, somebody here, they do heavily gambling. So they went in there and tried to rob it. I mean, they try to rob, the gambling places in Columbus Park when they gamble, right open out here in Columbus Park. And a couple of times they actually
Because they
called
go,
the
who are
cops.
they going to call? The cops?
And
You know,
sometimes
they're
they
gonna-
actually had to call the cops, and they
Yeah.
did to get the money back. But the
Right.
thing is, apparently, that was it, and they know what everybody has illegal. It's not just Asians, but there are Latinos and communities. In
So
there.
what happened? The guys fought back.
And they fought back, and then
Did one of them
And
end
the-
up in critical condition?
the innocent bystander, I believe the guy was like 46, 47 years. He was across the street with his family. He tried to intervene,
Oh shit!
and they just gave it to him. And he was the one who,
So the innocent, the good Samaritan.
is a Samaritan. So now
Right.
it goes
Is he
back
dead,
to
or-
he's dead.
They killed him.
He's dead. And he was severely stabbed to a point.
Wait,
that
he was with his family,
he was on the other side of the. Apparently, according
with
to
his
the,
kids and his wife.
whoever that was there, he was. He just
my
ran across the street. I believe the video's out, so you guys can probably check it. But the thing is, this goes back to that Kitty Genovese. I do not want to get involved. And what do you know whether the person is crazy, not so crazy, and even a homeless person, they have to arm themselves. And if they're not in the mental state of mind, if they think that you're trying to move a piece of garbage and that piece of garbage is their life possession, they're going to defend that, whatever that you touched. And if he or she is not in that right state of mind, you're going to be assaulted by somebody.
Do they have anyone in custody?
They didn't say per se, but I think that's still right now, under investigation. But,
Wow, that's crazy. That's a crazy story.
yep. And
So it wasn't racially motivated. It was a money thing where they were just like, oh,
yeah, they would just
Well, was it racially motivated? Where they go, oh,
There's a possibility that the attackers were not Asian.
okay.
And, like I said, I don't have all the information, so I'll just leave it
Then
at
how
that.
would they know about a gambling thing?
Well-
I'm just thinking out loud.
And,
Right.
we can always say, hey,
Because it's usually
somebody
folks in the community knows.
Either that or somebody inside say, hey, let's, I get a cut.
Yeah. Yeah. And they hired their friends out.
They're,
They
not,
knew
they're
about-
not hired.
they knew
just
about
they
the-
knew about, let's
Yeah.
just jack the place. There's no hiring. It's just something they're going to do.
Interesting.
I mean, that neighborhood is a mix. It's not like just
Sunset
Asians.
Park was
Yeah.
originally before, the expansion. It's right next to Park Slope. Predominantly at that time is Latinos and South Americans. But once they move out, there's still a handful that are there. So there's always going to be conflict, and there's still going to be, certain resentments, and things like this happen.
That's some crazy.
Because like Brooklyn, a lot of times when one leaves or one is like, okay, it gets to a certain population, or none of our crews are here anymore, so they move out. Because you also have to remember at that time, Bensonhurst, Dyker Heights, these are all predominantly Irish Italians.
Right.
And then on the other side, Borough Park, the Hasidics. So, but now you have, multiple Chinese ethnic enclaves in Brooklyn that are now considered Chinatowns. So Sunset Park is now one of the newer Chinatowns versus the 8th Avenue and the Sheepshead Bay or even
Bensonhurst.
Bensonhurst.
Yeah, Avenue.
So I grew up with all my friends who used to hang out with me. Bensonhurst was predominantly John Travolta and Saturday Night Fever, Italians and Irish. And, and I also have friends who are half and half. They couldn't make their bones because the other half is Irish. So these are my friends that I grew up with that comes out here and, that I know that I've known in Staten Island and also, coming down to Little Italy into my neighborhood. And, it's strange that, you see a Chinese guy kissing an Italian guy on the cheek. It's like, oh,
That's not how I say hello.
But these are my friends, and
Yeah.
and we're okay with that. That's
I think that's what the best occurs. Like when we share our cultures, or do we just share, like we could look beyond our like physical features and see what we offer inside and go, damn man, we're actually the same. Before
And
the
why
age-
is that?
Well, that's because I grew up and I hung out with a lot of people who were non-Asian at that time because their parents steered them into academics. And I guess I was always against the grain in that sense, where I was a rebel. And I just had this itch where I just wanted to go outside and play. I wasn't that kid that just wanted to stay home and, kind of stay in between the lines. I wanted to go past that.
And did you have tiger parents?
Absolutely. My mom was certainly a tiger mom. My dad was a little more flexible, but my mom was certainly as rough as they come, as tough as they come.
And how do you feel that? Do you think that she feels disappointed in what you were doing?
Back then, I would say when I was a kid, perhaps both my parents probably counted me out because I wasn't like my brother. I wasn't obedient in the way they wanted to in terms of academics and just going all out in school. I just, a very unbalanced approach. I mean, I was still in an honor roll. I was still kicking ass in school, getting A's.
But you were an
but
Asian
it wasn't.
F.
But it wasn't the same because I was still out there playing basketball, tag, baseball, hanging out with my friends and just running, playing in the sun all day. And for some reason, my mom didn't like that.
And where were you living then?
Weird. I was living at LES.
LES.
Yeah.
But you were on a predominantly
Hispanic area.
right. So you embraced the local
Hispanic, Italians.
culture.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
Even in school.
Yes.
I mean, everybody was predominantly, in my class, was predominantly Hispanic, Black, or Italian. That was really it. And maybe a couple of Chinese folks, but or Asians. But the thing is, they were looking at me like, Will, but I didn't feel connected to them because they had no interest in the stuff I was interested in. And if we were, they didn't express it. They were very quiet. So I'm not there to try, you look like me. Let me kind of pick you, open up your box and force it open and, get something out of you. I was just more like, oh, you like that too? Cool, let's play. Like all kids do. It wasn't a color thing. It was like, hey, you like this? Well, I like that too. Well, we should play sometime. Yeah, that sounds great. And that's exactly what we did. So to me, it wasn't a color thing until they made it a color thing. They made it a color thing. And that's what I couldn't understand because at a young age, when I started experiencing that at 6, 7, what kind of 5, 6, 7-year-old kid is supposed to get racism thrown at them? I got it thrown in my face. Like, yo, look at this Chino playing basketball. Look at this Chink doing this. And I'm saying, wait, what's this Chino Chink thing? Like, that's you, motherfucker? What? Why are you calling me that? Like, I just couldn't understand that at 6 or 7. And, that's Bruce Lee. I'm like, what? Like, oh, no, I'm not Bruce Lee.
Picked it up from their parents.
And then
it just goes on down.
Yeah, then you start calling me stuff like, yo, that's fried rice. And I'm just like, all right, nah, man. So that's when I was a kid. I had a pretty bad temper. So I didn't care what color you were. If you called me that, I'm going to punch you in your mouth. So, yeah, I did get in trouble in school because I would punch people back. Like, they wouldn't even,
you would retaliate and not be that silent and just take it and go home.
Because they would try to bully me, push me around, and I wasn't going to stand for that. And then my mom couldn't understand why, I would retaliate in that form because she just wanted me to just focus on school. And I'm saying, do you understand how difficult it is to be smart while other people are encouraging you? Like, that's not the cool thing to be. Like, the smart kids get beat up on. At that time, the bully culture was real, and the bullies were admired. Okay, the bullies were like the alpha dogs of the class. That was what it was like back then in that culture. I'm sure you remember that. I'm sure you remember that. Bullies was the alpha dog. Everyone looked up to them. So if you were smart and you outshine the bullies, they're going to feel some type of way. So you're going to become a target. And immediately when that target was aimed at me, I had to stop it right away because I wasn't going to come to school every day and and just become a victim. And if I am, we're gonna go down fighting at least. You know, I'm gonna catch you. You know, I may get it worse, right? Because there's more of you, but I'm gonna let you know that I'm punching back. I'm hitting you back. I don't care. I'm not just gonna be a punching bag. You're gonna get it. And then sometimes, like, I will go on the offensive. Like, I would try to bully the bully. So if you try to get at me, right, the next day, since I already knew you were coming at me, I'll just go straight up to you and knock you in your face. And I think after that, they were like, nah, Chinese bully's cool. Don't fuck with them.
So you basically created a reputation for yourself that you won't be bullied.
And did you have a crew to kick it with at the time, or you were like a lone wolf?
I was a lone wolf. But I
know that feeling.
But it was when...
That's what I had to ask.
Exactly, because it wasn't like there was other Asian folks there that were willing...
Because they want to beat you up to have you gang in. Because they go, back in the days I asked you, because I got guys like the Road Runners back in the Smith, and they were Puerto Ricans, and it was like, yo, man, why don't you just hang out with the Shadows, or, hang out with whatever. Because they're going to want to jack you up. They want you to, like, literally fight you to get you into your own crew. That happened back in the 70s during the Smith, because at the Smith Project, it was a mix. You have the Chinese, the Puerto Ricans, the Italians, the blacks, Jewish, or whatever it is. But it was such a mixed blend. I mean, it's funny because a lot of the gang violence stopped when they started intermarrying. And said, no, don't fuck them up. That's my niece. It's like, it literally stopped all, the internal or the gang fighting, because the fact that a lot of people decided to cross their racial and cultural.
And you know what's crazy? What I'm talking about, this is like fucking 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. This is like middle school shit. I'm not talking about gangs. I'm talking about my experience in middle school. That's the fucking crazy thing. What kind of kid under 10 years old is supposed to deal with this? Like, how am I supposed to go to school and be ready to deal with this? Just knowing that I'm going to get in a fight today. I'm going to get in a fight today because somebody's going to want to say something crazy or hit me, and I'm going to have to stand up for myself and defend myself. And that's crazy. That's a crazy notion.
And a lot of parents, they don't understand that, not to mention that the fact that with today's political, cultural correctness climate, ACS, military children's services, they don't see things like they were able to tolerate when we were growing up back then.
Right.
It's really, really upsetting, the fact that, everybody's literally had to walk on eggshells as to watch what you're saying. You had to use the right, warm and fuzzy language and terminologies that we're using, because everybody gets so hypersensitive.
Right. Let me jump in there for a second. Like, do you think this culture right now, with being able to be more careful about what you say, has it created a level of safety? Because right now, are kids really worrying about being, bullied to the extent that we were bullied?
You know what's the sad part here, Joe? I think that this story is not exclusive to us, right? Or me. This story that I just told you, you can relate to it.
Yeah.
You can relate to it. It happened to you too. People listening to this, and they may not even be Asian. They may be something else. But at one point they dealt with that bully, or they dealt with having to wake up in fear going somewhere every day, knowing that someone is targeting them at such a young age when they did nothing wrong except be themselves. It's not being highlighted enough.
If it is, it's done in a negative way. The fact that it's only perpetuating more violence towards, our demographics. And that's the sad part, because, we're practically like victims of world star of hip hop. Oh, look, well, they're easy to attack. Let's go do the same thing. Oh, that looks dope. Yeah, let's do that.
But you can't get street cred like that. And you know what I mean? It's like,
the thing is,
you get street cred for attacking women, children, or like 10-on-1. Like, that's not, to me, that's not tough. You know what I mean? Like, and even if you do attack another man, you're attacking someone that's not ready for it. You know what I mean? Like a gangster attacking a gangster. Okay, that makes sense. Let's not even that. Let's just say an MMA fighter attacking a civilian. You go, that's just not, even if it's a man, right? A man in his prime. Let's say a 25-year-old male and versus an MMA fighter. MMA fighter's going to absolutely destroy that guy. It's not even close. He's built like that. He's trained for that. So if a gangster or a thug, whatever, you built like that, but you attack somebody that's not really like that, doesn't have that energy, or you know what I mean? They're just a regular civilian. Then
It didn't
to
matter.
me, that's not street cred. Like, I wouldn't give you props for that shit.
They're doing it right now. They're doing it right now. I mean, even before all of this, and they would, that one time they were doing the sucker punch thing, knocking out
The
people.
knockout game.
And the knockout game. So when that got on, caught on to World Star, and next thing you know, all the kids, oh man, it's easy. And they just wanted to do it because they want to get on social media to get their likes. And that's what they do. They want to get their likes. Street smart, and if you graduated from HKU, that's something that, you don't get in books. You do know what HKU is.
No, I don't.
University of Hard Knocks, not from Hong Kong. But, and that's, and the same thing it goes, and I try to tell my daughter the same thing. And she was, pretty much raised here, and she had her stuff going on in middle school. And it's tough to be a Japjong.
What's that?
My daughter's a hopper.
Oh, she is?
Yes. Okay. So, she gets it from both sides.
So what kind of hopper? Like if...
my daughter's Irish, English, German.
You meet your wife in London?
No, I met my wife in Florida.
Okay.
She's American.
Same thing.
Yeah. But, growing up, my wife was here at the time. Guai mui, bak guai po, but they speak because I also teach them, my daughter's, and my daughter's 30 now. So she's gone through some.
Does she deal with a lot of struggles?
Yeah, but
identity.
She's not going to take shit either.
Where people don't look at her like white or Asian?
Not in front, not when she's with me, but when I'm uptown, and they'll look at me different because she's younger, and whenever I'm having dinner, they'll just think I'm the old horny dude with a young white woman. And I've literally gotten stopped on more than one occasions down in Florida when I, go out and hang out with her grandfolks, and because I'm in communities where my face don't belong.
Right.
So I would have
where the music stops when you walk in,
and because when I'm down there, my hair slicked back from going to the beach. My face is a lot darker, and my hair was a lot longer back then. Because I've even gone to the Glaze, and people look at me, "You skin?" Because they thought I was native. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, man, I'm just hanging out with my daughter. Oh, that's your daughter, and then that, it's get it all the time. So it's like I anticipated a lot of things, and just hanging out and experiencing and living things through the streets, and I try to tell my daughter, I said, listen, I know you're book smart, but you also have to have certain experience that you have to. You've seen your dad have to go through all of this stuff. And a lot of time I got stopped when she was a lot younger going to malls. Cops would come up to me, because I happen to have a white little girl in a sundress. I'm with my motorcycle outfit. My hair was long. I got tattoos. And the first thing they're going to do is they pop the button off the sidearm. They'll greet me. And then afterwards, I anticipate they're going to ask me for pictures and everything else. But I also speak in their language.
Mm-hmm.
This is down south.
No, this is at Newport Mall in New Jersey over here.
Shit.
But you know what? No, time out. You know what? I think I'm okay with that. You never know.
And I compliment them. I compliment them. I said, thank you for actually approaching me. Because
if they did it respectfully,
yes,
and just say, hey, little girl, is this man supposed to be with you? And she's like, yeah. Then you're like, all right, cool.
And the thing is, the bottom line is, even with law enforcement, how they approach you is one thing. How you respond to them will determine how they will act. And I teach this in the Bronx.
That's true to a limit, Joe. That's true to a limit.
But you can still have that.
Yes.
Once you
I agree with you there, but that's true to a limit.
So listen, there's a lot of assholes that don't need or have the right to wear that uniform and to have that badge and the sidearm. And unfortunately, the system tends to overlook and allow these people through the system, and they wear that uniform to disgrace the badge and that uniform. I don't call them bad cops. I call them assholes who has no right to be wearing that uniform and to have that badge.
They're
Two
disgraced.
different. So, it's like, and sometimes the system allows these individuals to go through.
Well, they slip through the cracks.
Yeah, and it's the same thing.
Because there's a lot of good cops out there too.
Yes, and the
lot of
thing
good
is,
cops.
we have assholes wrapped in this color in my neighborhood, picking on people in my neighborhood, and
Asian?
hence the gangs.
Yeah.
And they just happen to be assholes who happens to be Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say they're bad Chinese. They just happen to be, and in all different areas where I've seen people gets mistreated.
Right.
And when I do for what I do, when I handle, I work with people in the government services and how these individuals will handle their cases and how they deal with individuals with their children. And I says, you know what? I don't think you need to be in this job if you can't do your job right.
Now, what challenges did you have raising a daughter that was a Hapa? Besides people checking in on you, wasn't sure that you're the dad. You're the dad.
In the beginning, coming, to have my wife here in Chinatown, I knew that was going to be a setback because number one, there's still certain, people that's in my community that don't like to see their own marry out. So for me to bring an outsider, they're not going to say anything, but they'll talk. I can hear the chatters and the buzzing.
So they wouldn't say it to your face, but you would kind of like, you feel the energy in the room.
You can tell by by just the looks on the face how they would do it. At the same time, they'll probably automatically think that I'm an American-born Chinese, so I wouldn't understand my language, and I do. And as to my, my wife, the same thing. But, sometimes I would just let my wife cuss them out. It's like, and I would, and the same thing. And my daughter also, she speaks Toisan Cantonese to her Yan, which is her grandma. And she knows what, and it's like, I kind of feel bad in such a way because number one, Chinese don't, first of all, they don't favor daughters. So now I have a Jap Zhong Wei. That's what they call that, Yunhut, but mixed race. And but it actually makes you stronger because I'm also one of the fathers who wants daughters because more, typical Asians.
Oh, they're fucking awesome.
They want something. No, man. I've like.
Please. I would not trade.
Yeah, it's like
I love having girls.
And when she came out, I said, please make it a daughter. Freckles, green eyes, and red hair. Yes.
Does she have freckles? Green
And-
eyes?
A little
red
bit.
hair?
When she was younger, she, and they kind of.
Then the Asian traits took over?
The
Wait,
funny thing is when.
Does she still have green eyes? I've never met a
Well,
Hapa
it's
with green
not
eyes.
that green, but she's like hazel, but
She has red hair.
kind of tintish. Yeah, like her mom is like strawberry thing. She's a redhead. So, but that's the thing is, I'm not the first one in my family who grafted the tree because my paternal side, my first dad, he's Aussie, so he's Aussie Toisan.
Okay.
So I was supposed to be down there, but he passed away just when I was born. I never had the opportunity. But that family side, since to make another long story short, ended up basically leaving my mom in Hong Kong. So my stepdad, came in and took over, and next thing you know, I'm here. So I was supposed to be an Aussie Chan. So, but now I'm a Yankee Chan.
Now, did you get any shit from your wife's side of the family? Did she lose some
You
of
know
her
what
relationships?
it's funny
because I
is-
hear that a lot.
It's funny you said that. Joyce actually loved me more than she loved her own daughter. Because and the funny thing is, it's like, Joe, you sure you want to marry her? It's like, and by the way, afterwards, when, when Nikki and everything was born, I said, you're the best thing that ever happened to her. And she fucked it up. It's like, but I had no problem with, my in-laws then, and they loved me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because after we got married and all that, when I got married down in Florida, but you should see the clerk that gave me the marriage license.
What?
Because the fact that she looked at my wife and my fiance.
Like, sure you want to do
He did.
that?
No,
He
the
did a
clerk
double
was
take?
like, "Yo."
He did a double take.
It was a white woman that then looked at my face and was like, "You gonna marry this?" You know, and it was that. It's almost that scenario where that white woman didn't want to give the license to the
Yeah.
gay couple.
Yeah.
So I'm down in Florida. You know,
This
when-
should not be legal.
And yeah, well, there wasn't a time. There
Yeah.
was a time in Florida where they would hang my ass before I even leave the court with my
Oh, yeah.
paper. You know, so interracial marriage.
They don't play down south.
So
They don't play down south.
No, but I got married down there, and it's great. I have no problem with that because even when I was in the military, all of my friends and all my buddies and all that, it didn't.
You know what? In Florida, now that you mention it, there's a lot of interracial couples down in Florida. Even, I'm talking about with like your scenario, like with Asians across different cultures. I've seen a lot of Filipinos and whites down there. It was a lot. I had a lot of friends,
And you know,
when I was in
predominantly
Florida
around that
were half
panhandle,
Filipino, half
that-
white.
They hung out in Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, and you know, it's a lot of them that you can tell they're former military or vets. I was surprised there were certain places that the boonies that their wives are either Vietnamese or Thai, and perfectly normal. Some of these guys are like World War II vets, and they'll come back and my best friend Bob, his wife now is Korean, and he's like by the
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. A lot of with us as GIs, wherever we go, and we embrace the culture of the base that where it's located. I mean, I had a ball when I was living in London, and in the beginning it was a little tough because I was the only Chinese guy there on base. But after a while, everything's all cool.
Yeah, it was all love.
It was the best assignment I had for like it was a little hole in the wall. IF Uxbridge. It was it's an awesome assignment. I loved it. Me and I had my Harley Davidson, and just
You still ride?
I'm going to probably get back on one soon. My daughter cried when I sold it, and I got rid of it when she was a lot earlier. Because what I did was I actually built a 4-point harness and had her attached to my sissy bar. So she had a powder pink motorcycle helmet, and I'll be in the front. And every time, whenever I go see her friends, she'll be out like sleeping in the back when I'm just cruising,
Wow.
But,
My wife would kill me if I strap my kids onto a motorcycle with me. My wife would kill
Yeah, but a Harley
me.
is like a cruiser, so it's like
So-
I don't know. I
'cause,
feel like it's more safe.
She has a foot in her, in the saddlebag, and then she had an it's like a full aircraft type.
Bro, I would not hear the end of it.
click, and next thing you know, she'll be sleeping in the back. I'll be just chugging away.
Well, I kind of want to hear and like it sounds like your daughter is very proud to be from different cultures, right? And that's something you instilled in her, right?
Yes. And the thing is, when she was growing up, going out in middle school, and even when she was having a little challenge over here at 124 at Confucius Plaza, I tell her, I says, you play with anybody who would want to play with you. That's it. Whoever plays in that sandbox, you play with them. Did they play with you? You play with them.
Wait, so Asian kids gave her a hard time?
Yeah.
Because 124, that's Asian. Mm-hmm. That's predominantly Asian.
And only that. And the thing is, my problem is when she went to, when we used to hang out by Battery Park City, every time when she is playing there, the only problem that I was having is it's the parents would pull the kids away from her, not because of her, because of me, of this.
The parents pulled her away?
No,
because
pulled their kids away so they wouldn't play with her, not because of my daughter.
Why? I don't get that. Why would, because they were prejudiced towards Asians?
No, they were prejudiced towards me because of the way I look. My physical appearance to them was menacing. I was not, I didn't
What,
have
the tattoos or
was what
your racial
Battery Park
appearance?
City is by, on the other side
Right.
where the financial district is. I didn't look like one of them. I had long hair when she was a lot younger. So I had my tattoos and I was a biker. I did not look like somebody in finance. I did not look like I worked in the financial
You didn't
district.
have the clean cut look.
So back then my hair was like, long. But whenever she's there, if I was not there,
I see.
you would never, and she would look like she lived in one of those units at Battery Park City. And until they see me, and the next thing you know, and their nannies were like, get my kid. But she would just look at them and it's like, Dad, why do you do that? I said, don't worry about it. As long as there are kids out there, you just play with them. And I take them to, to like the pool by Bleecker and Carmine, and she would hang out with the kids and play. And I just sit and do whatever is. And that's what I like to instill into us is anybody who wants to play with you, play with them.
That's a great message. Is that your closing message?
That's probably my closing message.
That was beautiful.
And that's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all these stories.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here. And, I wish I can contribute more, but...
anytime. If you want to come back, you're more than welcome to come back.
Yeah, let me know if you guys got any, topics that's related about Chinatown or even what's happening with today's current climate. It's basically injustice, which is something else, my other friend, which I recently lost, Corky Lee. And it's all about just fighting injustice. And it's, this is my community, and it's not only just Asian Americans, Chinese or whatever it is. It just basically, people are not, it's not being done right by them. And the problem is the system is not doing enough. I'm being modest. They're not doing shit. And this is injustice. And somebody just said if it's injustice to one, it's injustice to all. And my other sad part is, the fact that our silence gives these people consent. And that pisses me to no end. I don't believe in that shit. And the thing is, and I always tell people, if anybody they go out of their way to intentionally put you in harm's way, that's hate. It doesn't have to be a racial hate. Hate is hate. Because nobody would go out of the way to put another person or even a puppy or a kitten, or just go out of the way and just kick a dog or throw a dog out the window of a moving car, or just smack you or open the window and spray you with, chemicals. That's hate. And if the system and the law does not understand the language of what the word hate is, then they need to fucking change that system and get rid of these individuals in that system to say, that's hate. Because that motherfucker went out of the way to push this person and injured them and literally or killed them because, I don't like the way. No, that's hate. That's it.
What a time we live in. What a time.
Yeah. And it's not getting any better because I hear somebody is coming back in 4 years.
Well,
that's a sad and sorry thing that we have half a nation that's willing to go that route. Because half of this nation is causing this.
Well, I have to say I don't think it's a left and right thing. I think there's some conservatives or some people on the right that's looking at what's happening to Asian Americans and do not agree with it and hate it, in fact. And I can tell you that people who are liberal and on the left may love what's happening to Asians right now. And they may be the one initiating the violence. The people on the left, the liberals. I don't think it's all Trump supporters. I think it's the people that even hate Trump that are attacking Asian Americans. I would dare to say that. I don't think it's a left and right issue. I think it's I go back.
Shitty people issue.
Yeah.
I think there's just shitty people. That's it. I don't want to draw lines and say it's a certain race or it's a certain political affiliation, or if you're leaning on the right or leaning on the left or somewhere in the middle. There's shitty people all over. And that's where I stand with that. So I don't think you can fight hate with more hate, but you do need to be more tough on the people that are hating. So that said, this is Lucky Boys Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we're out.